Well, there you have it then. In today's parlance, we've just heard the prequel for Christmas. This was the conception story, the one that precedes the birth story we're so familiar with, and we make such a fuss of, with angels and alleluias and carols and feasting and tinsel. It always seems a bit of a pity to me that this conception story is presented as an exercise of power, albeit disguised as an honour. But it's an exercise of power that leaves a teenager so terrified that she runs off to an elderly cousin seeking comfort and advice. And I wonder why Luke, a third-generation Christian and the storyteller for today, doesn't have her turning to her mother, Anna, or perhaps even to Joseph, the man she's engaged to marry. Two people she should be able to trust. And I wonder why Luke, writing about 50 years after Jesus' death, chose to tell us of a 14-year-old or thereabouts peasant girl and make her the cornerstone, as it were, for the whole history of Jesus that he's setting out to shape. In the coming year, we'll be focusing on Luke's gospel, for that's the gospel set for the next year. And we'll uncover a lot more about Luke as the year unfolds, I'm sure. But right now, we're hearing the story that sets the beginning in place. Initially, the story was by way of elucidation for Theophilus, a new Roman convert to Christianity. But as it's turned out, it's also been elucidation, as it were, for us, for Christians ever since. But this is not history, is it? Not history as we use that word today. Not the disclosure of an evidence-based story with verifiable facts and happenings just waiting to be told. These verses from the first chapter of Luke's Good News are not, after all, excerpts from Mary's pregnancy diary. The way Christianity grew and took Luke's stories to heart over the succeeding centuries suggests that the fact that this was a story and not history as we know it didn't matter at all. It hasn't seemed to matter for most of Christian history, only for about the last 300 years since the development of modern science. It hasn't mattered for most Christians, for most of Christian history, that the Bible and the Gospels are full of poetry and hymns and stories and parables, with a few bits of historical data thrown in. It hasn't mattered any more than it mattered for the Greeks or Romans that their panoply of gods and goddesses and the corpus of stories that shaped their worldview for 1,000 years or so were what we sometimes disparagingly call myths today. Both, all of them, were truth-laden stories that opened up the depth of human living and human potential. It's clear to biblical scholars and theologians of today that Luke was not so much interested in presenting facts as he was in creating a story and a backstory for Jesus to convince us to listen to the vision of an alternative world that Jesus lived and then died for. The social structure of the world in which Jesus lived was not a blueprint from God unable to be changed, any more than our social organization is a blueprint from God and unable to be changed. We dream the world we create. We imagine it. And there's always a new and better way waiting for us to dream, to imagine, and to strive for. Luke was an educated man, a doctor, it's thought. Today we could be excused if we thought he'd attended workshops on community development, on growing community organisations and community movements as well. He certainly seemed to know the importance of creating a vision exciting enough to captivate the dreams and imagination of the people, creating a vision that resonated enough with the deepest anxieties of the people so they would engage with it and give it a try. Luke's story attaches the Jesus story that he's convinced has the potential to change lives to that of a 14-year-old peasant girl who, we've just heard, calls herself a servant. And her baby, of course, because there's the human interest dynamic as well. It's important, so it seems to me, for us to keep in mind that Luke was not so much interested in Mary's story as he was in persuading new Gentile Christians to attend to the impact of Jesus' teaching, to Jesus' vision for a new way of living. Jesus is always Luke's main focus, not the women, though Luke seems to tell us more about women than any of the other Gospels, including the story that we've heard today. For Luke's purpose, Jesus needs a mysterious conception, a virgin birth. He needs to rise from humble origins, for that is the way of all great Caesars of Rome, and for all other great kings and leaders and scholars from around the Mediterranean world who were deified after death. Notwithstanding this, I just want to invite us for a moment to consider what may well have been an unintended outcome of Luke's storytelling. But for me, it's really good news. And it's this, that even the most unimportant of people, such as an unmarried pregnant girl at the bottom of the social hierarchy, warrants a visit from an angel, from a messenger direct from God. This ordinary girl becomes extraordinary in the story of Jesus that we've been telling for centuries. She may have been just a means to an end for Luke, but she's very good news for us. Luke was focused on Jesus and on telling a story and creating a history for Jesus. A history that would resonate with the expectations of the people 2,000 years ago, for their leaders and for their important scholars, and a history which would connect readily with existing scriptures and religious stories, and would resonate with the long-held hope of the Jewish people for a Messiah, for one who would come and save the people from their captivity under the yoke of the oppressor. The vision Jesus proclaims, the Jesus story that's told in the Gospels, invites people to open their minds and to open their hearts to a different vision of humanity and a different vision for the way we could live together in community. It invites those who hear the story to find the courage to say yes to the alternative vision that is being proposed for human relationships and community dynamics. It is a story that invites people to begin living as though they really do matter, as though God is with them, as though they are favored. It encourages those who accept the invitation to live respectfully, to work for healing, to share food, to worry about the widows, to worry about the children, to worry about the aged, and to care for them. This is not a story about passivity, despite the model of women that Luke sets up. To this end, the story and the vision it attests to still has power today. The angels and glad tidings and declarations of favor are for us to be, for us to embody for one another, for us to wonder, where in the world could I be good news? Where in the world does hope need to be today? It seems to me that it is our work to be those angels and to be those glad tidings and to be respectful companions for each other as we move towards a new and different vision for the way we could possibly be kinder and more peaceful. We're encouraged by the retelling of the stories of Jesus to dare to open another new vision for the world for our own time. A vision in which the proud and the mighty will fall from office. The hungry will be filled with good things. In which the ordinary can become the extraordinary. In which we dare to proclaim peace and justice, kindness and favor, and, like Jesus, to work for it despite continuing opposition. God be with us as we dream new possibilities and accept hope as it comes into the world and is found amongst us. Amen.